need to know. So as long as you tell me you're not showing.
Sure.
That's the word.
Mhm. Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so we'll call a monthly meeting with Share County Board of Supervisors to order. I'll start out with a roll call. Mr. Peterson and Mr. Bossert are excused, so. Okay, everybody's here. We'll rise then for silent prayer and pledge of allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, with that, then I'll look for a motion for the approval of the agenda. Okay, Mr. Wadle, second by Mr. Bonfiglio. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approval of the minutes of the February 21st, 2023 monthly meeting. Mr. Bonfiglio makes the motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Eckstein. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, very good. We don't have anybody signed up for public comments. No unfinished business, so we'll move right into new business. Reports and presentations with the County Administrator's Monthly Report. Melissa Pingle.
Good evening. I will try to keep mine brief. A lot of the items that I have to share are on the agenda, and Kurt and Sarah will probably be talking about. With the building projects, we are working on some of the finalizations of numbers and trying to get better, harder numbers on some of the things like moving, what can be reused. And so, and then also our move from this facility and highway over and like what that looks like. So I'm going to be asking at some point for ARPA money to image documents that we no longer need to keep, or no, we don't want to move, but we have to keep them. And then going through the records with each department and saying, you don't need to keep this, you need to keep this. And each department going through that. And then the stuff we do need to keep an image, I would like to get that done so we don't have to move it to both places if not possible. Some departments have retention where they have to keep the hard copy and the paper. But so we're working on that and then doing the inventory of all the spaces. So that will be a primary focus of mine over the next month. And also then getting quotes on the scanning. April 18th, we are doing the training here. We're going to do a meeting at 3. And Dan Foth from the UW Extension is coming for you guys. He's going to talk earlier to the department heads that day. And I believe we are going to try to keep as minimal business on that agenda as possible. So you're not here till 8 o'clock at night after you start at 3. And I don't think we have any annual reports on that date as of right now, correct? Okay, good. And there are 2 things on the agenda. And we're going to look at the bylaws. So I'm going to send those out to you guys. So if you have questions on the bylaws or you want some changes, we can talk it through with Dan Foth from the UW Extension. And then Ruth is working on amending the bylaws for, I can't remember what it is, but if we're going to do an update, we can. I'm not asking you have to, but just it's a good time to look at it since she's already amending them for a different reason. And 2 later things on the agenda are resolutions to change the meal reimbursement policy. And Sarah can talk about it more later if you have more questions, but it's basically bringing us up to where we can reimburse staff for going to lunch, breakfast when they are traveling. Because our amounts were so low, we'd say $10 for breakfast, but it was like 12. And then we're doing this game where they're, paying us $2 back and the back and forth. So we're trying to just make it more of like a if you spend $10 at lunch and you spend 20 at dinner time, like the max would be 60 for a day. We're not going to like a per diem, but if your meal in the middle of the day is 18 and your night one is 18, if it comes out to underneath that amount allowed, we're going to allow that instead of worrying so much about breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And the policy hasn't been updated, I don't think, since 18. So we can talk more about it later if you would like. And then the other one on is the vacation carryover policy. The policy allows the administrator to give up to 30 days extension on your vacation carryover. So once you get to your anniversary, I can say, yep, you can carry over. But it's only limited to 30. And so I would like to be able to give people 90 days to get that vacation in, because especially some of these departments, when we're really running low, they don't get time off, and then I don't like to have to penalize them for working hard. And so I'd like the 90 days to let them extend that vacation time. And then lastly, Kurt would like to come up and talk a little bit about the building project. And I thought, since that's kind of a natural of what we've been dealing with all month, I'll let him come up.
Evening, everyone. I gave a handout here. This is an overall status update of where we are with the budget for the master plan. Currently, all the projects have been bid out outside of the demolition of the courthouse and annex. That's a decision that will be made down the road if we get a response from any development firms. As of today, we have no responses from development firms or any groups that are interested in the downtown property, but we do have one that has been corresponding with us, just no proposal. So we're still working on that. But I just wanted to give you an update of where we stand currently, maybe walk through these numbers with you. So we've identified the current budget of each one of the projects, the two line items that say ODIP that may be confusing for you as to what does that stand for. That's the owner direct insurance program. As you will recall, we purchased the workers' comp through County Mutual so that you have the opportunity to get the savings when the projects are safe as a return. So those numbers are a cost to the project, but they were a deduct from the original contract amount. So it's not an increase to the overall budget. It's just we broke it out as a separate line item. So recently, the EOC and the evidence garage, we received bids on the 2nd of March. And we received the Watoma EMS bids on the 9th of March. You'll see the reflective budgets that are there. The bottom line of the $89,486,000, our budget for that master plan was $89.5 million. So we're under the budget. Within each one of these projects, there is a contingency carried. There's differing amounts. We've carried a higher percentage on the EOC because there's a potential of touching existing conditions in that EOC number. The EOC, we did not get complete bid coverage. There's two categories that we did not get bids on. One was concrete, one was masonry. We did get a concrete number. It was late, so we could not accept it. So we're rebidding that. And the masonry number, we're rebidding as well. Those bids are due on the 23rd of this month. So when is that? Thursday? And then we're planning to come back to the building and grounds with an update in regards to where those budgets are, and then make decisions on start dates for both EMS, EOC, and the evidence garage. So ultimately, it's a good report in regards to being under budget. There has been some concerns in regards to is the contingency enough, and we'll work through those details in regards to timing of when and if we start some of the projects. So any questions of where we stand right now? Clear as mud. Overall, the rest of the projects are underway. If you see the highway, a lot of the bar joists are up on the office area. They did finish the other bearing walls, so you'll see steel will start going along the highway shop. Government Center, you can see the exterior walls are coming in place. Slabs are being poured, so progress is moving along well. Poisippi is still on track for May, pending our weather to get our utilities in. The building essentially is wrapping up here in the next month or so. We just need to get the utilities and the paving done. So things are moving along very, very well. So anything else, John? Or?
Nope. That sounds good. Thank you, Kurt. Does anybody have any questions for Melissa or Kurt? None? Okay. All right. Then we'll move into the child abuse prevention presentation. Prevention Coordinator Christopher Langenfeld.
I will say I'm honored to be the first person with props tonight. So I'm Chris Langfeld, Prevention Services Coordinator for Washera County. I know some of you know me for better or for worse. I do enjoy a microphone, so I did see a clock come up before. That would probably be good for somebody like me. But you guys were really brief, so just if you gotta hook me, hook me. Especially when I'm talking about something I really enjoy, which is engaging the community. So what we're going to do in April for Child Abuse Prevention Month is to bring awareness. Now, this community has done that before. Some of the things I'm going to mention have been done. Articles in the paper. I'll be talking with Mary this week, and we're going to be doing some things like putting up pinwheels. Everybody, ooh. As fun as pinwheels are, they're supposed to represent the joy that every child should have. Sadly, what these will be representing, besides the joy, which is a good thing, is when they're in the lawn, each one of these is going to represent a child abuse case that the county has worked with. So my knowledge is hundreds of these reports come in, whether it's endangerment or abuse. But in 2022, we actually worked with 68 cases. So 68 cases actually made it through the filtering process that we actually dealt with. It was a valid case that we worked on. So when you see these on the courthouse lawn at some point in April, if we get the ground to thaw and we can stick them in the lawn, they'll be arranged and there'll be 68 of them, and that's what they represent. So if anybody says, oh, what's up with the pinwheels in the courthouse lawn? Please tell them. It's supposed to represent joy. Unfortunately, each one of those represents a child that we had to deal with through Department of Human Services. There'll also be yard signs. Ooh. And I don't need to turn around because it's double-sided. Ooh. Wow. But again, trying to bring some joy to a sad situation, right? Because joy is what heals. Anger doesn't heal. Sadness doesn't heal. The joy heals. So we're supposed to be talking about the joy of childhood, and we should all be standing up for children because of what they're missing out when they're in those bad situations. And that's what we all have a responsibility to do. And bringing this out, putting them in the courthouse lawn along with pinwheels and some around town for people who are putting them in their yards, that'll be happening. There will also be an invitation for people to put blue ribbons on trees. I don't know if any of you remember Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around an Old Oak Tree. That song was around back in the day. So we're saying tie a blue ribbon around a tree to show support for child abuse prevention. So whether it's a tree, whether it's something, your yard, on a gate, put it in your business, any kind of ribbon, we're pumping the blue ribbons. And that's got to get in the article. Okay. And last but not least, yep, did that, is one of my favorite things, again, talking about joy and bringing joy to bring attention to something that's not joyful. I was working with the Wautoma Public Library for a kids coloring contest. Oh, little Piglet holding his pinwheel. I didn't fake that. There's actually an image of Piglet holding a pinwheel, and it's representing that same thing, the joy of childhood. So we're going to be working with the library, partnering with them. The contest will be in April, and there'll be prizes. So kids, there'll be 3 age groups from all the way down from 3 years old up to 13, and we'll have some teen prizes. Nothing that bores a teen. It's a cool backpack. Well, at least a guy my age thinks it's a cool backpack. But yeah, hopefully it's a cool backpack for a teenager. So all of those things combined to bring attention during the month of April to child abuse prevention. Any questions? Oh, the shirts. Hold your question. We did an order for shirts a while back. They came really fast. I thought it was going to take like 2 months, but it didn't. And we're all going to be on the courthouse lawn and maybe the courthouse steps to take a picture related and have it go with the article. You writing that down? That's true, but tomorrow it's a long ways away, Mary. You might forget. I might forget. Okay, we're here at the meeting. It's official. It's being recorded. Okay. So yes, so have all these, we have about 50 people bought t-shirts, going to stand, take a picture, get some shots, and just have some great, probably be on the front page. Wouldn't you say, Mary? Yeah, front page. Question.
The pinwheels, is it for each child or each family that had a child?
A case.
Each case.
It did say child, but it's the case. You're welcome. Anybody else?
Any other questions?
April 18th.
Ooh.
Thank you, Chris,
You bet. Thank you.
making us aware of that. That's very important. Thank you.
There's there.
All right, with that, then we'll move into the Land Conservation and Zoning Department Annual Report with the Land Conservation and Zoning Director, Todd Waller.
Good evening, everyone. Wally told me before I got up here to make it shorter than last year's. I didn't think it was that bad, except I heard him with his taser revving it up back there. So,
Here we go.
no, thank you very much for allowing me an opportunity to come up here. 2022, a year finally without any COVID, without any of the constraints, upon the workplace. However, as we went around that obstacle, we were hit with another. Last year, we saw the highest inflationary numbers since 2008, which obviously added increased costs in labor and raw materials. However, we saw record numbers across the board in terms of permits issued, as well as overall revenue. Land use permits eclipsed all recorded numbers since we've been keeping track, and building permits brought in a staggering $300,000. Obviously, this kept our office real busy. However, in addition to those challenges, I was also faced with some inter-office turnover. We lost Mary Bone, a 10-year veteran, to retirement. She was our administrative front. We also lost Avery Lair, another administrative specialist who took a private sector elsewhere in the county. However, as they say, you take one challenge and turn it into another success, and I think we did just that. With the hiring of two exceptional existing county employees, Michelle Weddy and Becky Hubach. Michelle came to us by way of the Register of Deeds and Becky by way of the Health Department. Pleased to announce that as of today, we are fully staffed and basically up to full speed. That is. Yep. On a different front, I'm going to talk a little bit too about our efforts, continued efforts in the Central Sands region with the Central Sands Groundwater County Collaborative, as well as our efforts with the Winnebago Waterways Lake Management Plan. As I said, our land use permits, and that literally crushed where we've ever seen in recorded history within our department. We issued 541 land use permits spread amongst 78 new homes, 96 additions to homes, and 367 accessory structures. One thing I'd like to point out is, number one on the top up there, and I know one of these is red button, sorry. You can see right here, this bottom blue line, you can see a slight dip from 22 to from 2021. That's new homes. But you can see, even though with that slight dip, we're still well ahead of the average from 2012. The other thing that's really neat to see is this big spike that represents accessory structures. One thing I'd like to point out is that when we talk about accessory structures, these are primary pole barns. But we're not talking your average pole barn. These are probably $250,000 plus. So these are some, nice pole barns that are going up across the county. Our contracted inspection company, General Engineering, issued 550 total permits. They brought in $300,101, which was a 28% jump from last year. In addition, we issued 178 sanitary permits authorizing 65 new private on-site wastewater treatment systems, 91 replacement systems, and 22 connections to existing systems. And as many of you are aware, we also are required by state statute to have a mandatory sanitary septic system maintenance program. You probably get those little cards in the mail every 3 years. That's in accordance with the program. These systems need to be inspected and or pumped every 3 years. In 2022, we sent out a total of 2,800 notices to Waushara County landowners, resulted in ultimately 72 citations. However, we worked with the landowners and the pumping companies, and we only have 6 of those remaining as outstanding, which is a compliance rate of about 99.7%. Now, as I talk about how busy we've been in the field, or excuse me, in the office with permits and land use permits, building permits, we've been exceptionally busy also out in the field. Our department last year conducted over 618 field visits to various properties around the county. That included 174 sanitary system inspections, 9 on-site soil verifications, 131 code non-compliant investigations, 66 annual travel trailer inspections, 200 on-sites, and that for landowner requested information, 1 re-veg, and 37 address number assignments. We also work with the non-metallic mining. We worked with 14 non-metallic mining sites involving approximately 247 unreclaimed or active acres. It netted the department about $4,300. And last year, 2 acres were certified as reclaimed. And when I talk about reclaimed, you can see here this being unreclaimed, undeveloped. Before they can turn it back over, it's got to be regraded to meet our codes and requirements and then vegetated. Now I'm going to switch gears and go over now to the land conservation side, working with what we call WEQIP or SWIRM. That's our water quality improvement program, the soil, water, and resource management program. We brought in $41,000 to be secured for landowners for hard practices and $25,000 secured for soft practices. When I talk about those practices, a soft practice is nutrient management. A hard practice would be such things as shaping or grading of a grassed waterway, riparian buffers, wetland restorations, or stream bank projects. We tracked a total of 27,340 acres under nutrient management plan, which equates to about 30% of the county's tillable land. This is an example of a project that we just finished in the town of Aurora. It's along the Fox River. You can see here the before, and that you could see the active erosion and the infiltration of sediment into the waterways. And now with the after, we came back with riprap, restabilized the shoreline, and a nice vegetative mat at the buffer area, and that, so basically restabilizing. So that was used through some of our funding. This year, we also, excuse me, held the 15th annual Conservation Field Days, which is a hands-on environmental learning event at Camp Lucerne. If you haven't been there, I definitely welcome you guys next year, or excuse me, this year in September. I welcome you to participate. We set up stations. We had 206 fifth graders last year from all public schools in Waushara County. We set up about 6 stations where the kids have active hands-on demonstrations with regard to forestry, wildlife, fisheries, stormwater management, aquatic invasive species, aquatic indicators. And we finish up the day with a great presentation, as you can see down here with the owl from Reggie. That's the Raptor Education Group incorporated out of Antigua. They do an exceptional job. They bring in animals that have been wounded out in the field. They try to rehabilitate these. Some of them they can't. They bring those in for presentations. So great opportunity for you to get out in the field, come out, spend the day with us, and enjoy some. I got to tell you, I'm still walk away from there every year with something I've learned. And that's the soil lady that talks about, you know, our vegetative land that's on the size of your finger.
What's the date again this year?
It's going to be September 28th and September 29th at Camp Lucerne.
Okay.
Give us a call, Everett, and I'll get you signed up if you want to be a volunteer.
It's usually in May. So.
Yeah, we
That's
did it in
why
the
I
fall.
asked.
We just have nicer weather in the fall. Spring has been really unpredictable. We also act as an administrator for the APHIS program, which is the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service through the USDA. It's basically money in, money out. We do get a small stipend from the administering the program. But this year, the payable losses for deer damage were $41,438, which was paid out to 8 qualified groups or individuals for 88.5 acres of damaged cropland. They also harvested 119 deers through this program. As I do every year, I like to make mention of the fact that our office is involved in a couple of multi-jurisdictional collaboratives focused on addressing regional and national concerns. And the Winnebago Waterways Lake Management Plan is one of these efforts. We work together with Fond du Lac County, Winnebago County, Calumet County, the Wisconsin DNR, excuse me, the Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance, numerous contributors, volunteers, and focus groups. This plan was developed in 2020. It's the first of its kind. We're now in the third year of implementation. We've been very instrumental in the formation of public interest groups, regional workshop sessions for farmers and lakefront property owners with the sole purpose of improving water quality to the Pool Lakes. As I say, we've become the fourth member, now the fourth, and I apologize. I wanted to announce the fact that, pleased to announce that at the end of last year, we entered into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement whereby we became a fully funded member of the executive committee, giving us full voting privileges and oversight of this program. What I wanted to point out here is that now we've become the fourth county member of the executive committee, joining Calumet, Fond du Lac, Winnebago counties. Oops. And while I know that we just maintain, and I'm going to kind of outline here, Waushara County comes down like this. And you can see that in terms of the Pool Lakes, we just have a very small portion of Poygan that actually goes into the Pool Lakes. But you can see here, we've got like 14 watersheds that contribute directly to that water quality. Now, prior to our involvement, or I should say prior to the cooperation agreement, our involvement has been purely voluntary with in-kind contributions, but it has paid beneficial dividends to the county since we've been involved. And despite not contributing a single dollar to the program, we have taken, received invaluable information from the 9 key element plan that was developed by the DNR for 72 hucks. Now this is 32 hucks. There's another cluster of hucks up in the Wapaka region and also up into Brown County, up in this region here. A plan of that nature would cost upwards of $30,000 to $40,000 if we were to do it ourselves. We are actually able to use that information to find out TMDLs and best management practices for some of our hucks. In addition, towards the end of the year, we entered into an MOU with the Foxwoof Watershed Alliance for a cover cropping and no-till farming program with a funding contribution of $10,000 annually over the next 2 years. And while I know this falls out of the scope of this report, Foxwoof Watershed Alliance recently received $3.7 million grant from the state. And this is to fund water quality and agricultural practices. Now that money will be spread amongst 8 counties, our county being one of those. We're also going to get a full-time, full-staffed professional agronomist, of which we're going to house upstairs. And he'll be with us. It's a 5-year contract, of which will be funded, fully funded for 3 years. So good news about that is that when you talk about, okay, it's funded for 3, but contract goes for 5, I'm looking at probably a couple retirements here in the very near future upstairs. We might be able to, if this person's a perfect fit, is be able to hire them through attrition. So I'm hoping that's the case. Last, or the other collaborative I'd like to talk about really quickly is the Central Sands Groundwater County Collaborative. This group is comprised of health professionals, land conservation professionals, and designated county supervisors from Adams County, Juneau County, Marquette County, Portage County, and Waushara County and Wood County. Leading the efforts on behalf of Waushara County is Mary Roble, our county health department, Ed Hernandez, Deputy Director of Land Conservation, Mark Piowski, County Supervisor, and myself. In 2022, our group received a $65,000 grant from the DNR. With that money, we hired a postdoc named Dr. Carla Romano. She took that, and her job was to compile data and tests from over 10,000 private wells in the 6-county region. At the end of 2022, we received the corresponding data set from her. Ed and I have been working very closely with Stephanie Sattler, our GIS professional. And what we've been doing is transposing that information and data sets onto maps. What you see before you is kind of a culmination of that. Each square represents a minimum of 1 well test. And then, of course, the corresponding figures. Now, this is 2012 to 2017. Here's a map from 2017 to 2022. What we're going to be doing is taking that information, putting it on our website, putting it on the CSGCC website. But after talking with Louis, we're going to do some things too about making it more user-friendly and maybe breaking it down into ranges of say 0 to 5 parts per million, 5 parts to 10 parts per million, and then kind of going 5 parts per million increments so that people can have a better understanding of where they sit. There is a upcoming reveal presentation on April 6, 2023. I believe all of you should have gotten an invitation from the Geological Historical Society from Wisconsin. If not, I think I also sent one out to you. I know I sent it out to many of my boards and commissions. And that's going to be held in Marquette County. And lastly, I'd like to talk about one more effort that our department is spearheading with the intent of proving, the water quality for our own residents. As many of you are aware, the county finalized our private well water testing program in the fall of 2021. That was a 3-year event. The map here represents over 350 tests that were conducted. 86 of these had elevated levels of nitrates. Now, to this end, Ed Hernandez, myself, and with the assistance of emergency management and your help, we earmarked $200,000 of ARPA funds to be used towards water quality improvement. To this end, we have set up a cost share program to include the installation of water treatment systems in homes with recorded high levels of nitrates. To date, we participated in the installation of 28 systems, which breaking that down, it's 3 whole house systems and 25 single point systems to a cost of around $48,000. Our goal, while we still have access to the ARPA monies and the $200,000 we have allocated, is to continue to get that word out and hopefully offer a system to anybody with nitrates of 4 parts per million and above. And finally, I'd like to just present the 2022 Land Conservation and Zoning Department. You know, as I prepare these presentations each and every year, I look back at the challenges we faced, the diversity of individuals, and the incredible progress we've made. Despite all of us coming from different backgrounds, maintaining completely different skill sets, and having completely different personalities, we've all come together and formulated a complete, cohesive, unified team. I applaud each and every member of my team and that of the entire county for displaying such resiliency. You know, I do compare us to counties and communities that I've worked for or that I know of personally. And I have to say that our county, for being such a small rural county, provides some of the finest services around. I say it each and every year and continue to express my gratitude to all of you and to my staff. If you guys have any questions at all, I welcome you guys to please stop upstairs, have a cup of coffee. And it seems like every day there's like donuts and stuff like that. So with that, I open myself to any questions.
You know, going back to your permits there at the beginning, what are you noticing with interest rates going up in the start of 23 here? Is it
Our
any
permit,
slowdown or anything?
nope, our permit
Nothing.
numbers are keeping track with last year, which
Huh.
is, you know, it's hard to believe.
Yeah.
And when you talk to all the builders, there's not even enough builders out there to do the work. As you know, on you know, planning and zoning, I know Robert and Pat, you know, I keep bringing this stuff back. I'm bringing land use permits, you know, each and every month back, asking for extensions because everybody says their contractors just can't get to it.
Yeah.
So
It's crazy.
been incredible.
Good enough. Thank you, Todd.
All right,
Very
thank
good.
you guys.
You bet. Okay. We'll move on then to the medical examiner's office annual report with the medical examiner, Amanda Toma.
I apologize, I don't have as lively as Todd's images are. I believe if I showed you that, you probably wouldn't ask me to come back.
We're hoping your
So-
numbers aren't going up. That's.
Well, you'll be pleased. So this is our current medical examiner staff. I am the medical examiner. We have Heidi Hansen. She was a hospice nurse and decided to come on board a little over a year ago now with us. And she is one of the most empathetic people I have ever met and is a great asset to us. We have Emily, who's, I believe, going on 3 years now. We still have that vacant position that we are trying to fill. Please know that this is not a position that we can just put anybody in. This is something that takes great grace and sympathy, empathy, and understanding of forensic science along with medical terminology, disease processes. And you can't always get that in one person. Sometimes that's something that you really have to teach a lot of people. But a lot of the top ones that I listed, you can't just teach people that. You have to actually embark that in their personality and their characteristics. So we're still searching. We're actively searching. Anytime I'm out and about, I went to the safety, I believe it was tractor safety, something like that at Heartland Farms 2 weeks ago now. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. I apologize. All the days kind of mesh together sometimes. And I even spoke to people about applying that were interested, asking about the position. So it's getting out there. We have it advertised. It's just something that people just aren't really wanting to work with dead people on a continuous basis. It's a tough job. These are the types of deaths, and I bring these back to you guys every year. I added a few here and there that I will be the first in 17 years to see, somebody who has actually had an intentional choking. This is just the different ones that encompasses all of them that I do deal with. This is the yearly overview from 2022 to 2021. Or I'm sorry, 2022, I apologize. But you can see the comparison down below there of 2021. We had 242 cases, and we went down this year to 217. But of those cases, we dealt with 191. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't touch 217 cases. I touched 217 cases. It just means that only 191 that I actually signed out with the death certificate and or cremation permit. Out of that 191, we had 167 natural deaths, which is a good thing. 20 accidental deaths, which means that that could be car accidents, that could be people who have fallen and had an injury that they ultimately subsequently died from the sepsis or something along that lines with the injury that contributed to their death. We had 4 suicides. We had no homicides and no undetermined. We had 4 referrals and 5 Green Lake County cases because we were still helping Green Lake County at the end of last year until the partial beginning of this year. And we had 10 autopsies. I find it very interesting in looking at these numbers. In 21, we had 22 autopsies and we had 10 last year. I can't explain that except that the cases were just different. I apologize, this is so small. I try to get at least a 6-month overview on each screen. This is from January to June, and you can see that January and February were higher, and then as well as March. I found it interesting in looking at these because this year we've already had 20 in January, 20 in February, and in March we've had 7 this March. So I'm not certain as to what's happening. It's a good thing that the deaths are down this month, but I just thought I'd point that out to you. You will see going through this that there are documented the Green Lake case because we do bill them for my time. I'm the only one that does respond to those. Our contract is up as it was up as of January 5th, 2023, because they have elected to combine with Marquette County for an ME position. Oh, I do want to point out, I know that some of you had seen in June, there were 34 cases. In 17 years, I've never had that many deaths in 1 month. And there is 1 skeletonized human remains, which we'll touch on later on here. This is July through December. You can see the differentiation in cases, same as the previous 6. And I will note that as of now, I still have 1 pending case of 2022. If you look at December's, that's because the autopsy hasn't come back, toxicology hasn't come back, and I need to wait for that to be able to sign that out. I signed 187 death certificates last year and issued 166 cremation permits. Even though we had 191 cases, sometimes what'll happen is a physician will sign out the death certificate because that funeral home doesn't understand that within our county, if we sign the cremation permit, we sign the death certificate. We don't do that to charge the family extra. We do that to streamline it better for the family because sometimes it takes the physicians a long time to sign these out. It will sit in their electronic CIVRIS queue is what we call it for weeks, and the families won't get those death certificates for a long time. So we try to just expedite that for them by doing that death certificate and then populating that cremation permit and sending it over to the funeral home. I wanted to kind of give you a brief guesstimate of how long it takes on each death scene. Now, a normal death scene, a natural death scene that I get called out to, minimum of 4 to 6 hours. That means driving there, spending time with the family, investigating the body, taking a look at the scene, doing my photographs and paperwork. That's a bare minimum of 4 to 6 hours, just that. Now, it takes another 1 to 2 hours to get medical records, take a peek at those. It takes even longer when we're doing death investigations that involve autopsies or skeletonized human remains or toxicology or even pathological testing that we do that we have to drop off at the lab and then get the results back. This doesn't encompass either the amount of time that I spend with these families, calling them, giving them the updates, or them calling me and asking for an update. I always welcome them during this process that they are waiting, because it does take up to 6 months to get an autopsy report back. I encourage them to call me and let me know if they have any questions, because I want to be able to keep them brief throughout this process so they know that their loved one isn't forgotten. This is a skeletonized human remains, and yes, this is an actual picture of the skull. There is another top of the cranium, of another cranium that I have in my office that will remain with us because that was determined to be of forensic importance and it cannot be identified as archaeological. So when we get skeletonized human remains in our county, I work with forensic anthropologist Jordan Karsten out of UW Oshkosh. I've worked with him for years. He is excellent. What I do is I meet up with him and he'll tell me right away if this is archaeological or if this is something that we need to investigate further or just hang on to, or is something he just can't identify at that point in time. So he had taken this skull. This skull was found in a place in Red Granite, a residence that was being renovated, that was purchased by a construction company, and they're going to turn it into apartments, I believe. So they found this as well as the cranium of another skull as displayed. So when I get these, obviously they're handled with care, and I take that over to Jordan, and he was telling me that this one, he identified this one as a Native American female between the ages of 20 to 40 years old, and it's unknown time since death, which means that this is an extremely old skull. So what happens then is that I sign that evidence over to him because it's no longer needed for us, for our purpose. And then we have them repatriate it with the tribal nations of Wisconsin. So I actually signed this one over to the tribal nations of Wisconsin to have that repatriated. I'm hoping to actually be at one of these repatriation events because I want to be able to see and experience that, because we actually had, I don't know if you recall, when I first started in 2019, we had a home in Wild Rose where the family was cleaning out their parents' home, and they had buckets and boxes of fragmented remains, and I believe there were 4 skulls in there as well. And they turned them over to me, and I took and worked with Jordan on them, and he's still working on them. There were over 300 fragments. There were 2 juveniles and 2 adults. 1 juvenile and 1 of the adults was scalped, and the other adult had died from tertiary syphilis, because obviously back then they didn't have antibiotics to be able to treat syphilis. So it spread to his bone and his brain, and he ended up passing away from that. We are unsure of how the other juvenile had passed away, but he has those remains right now, and he is continuously working on them. It's been a huge project for his office over at UW Oshkosh, and he gets a lot of his students to work on this. He gets a lot of grant money to do it. So it's essentially at no cost to us. I believe I paid, I think, a very small amount, maybe $200 for him to look and analyze this skull as well as the top of the cranium that I had. And it is well worth it when I know that he can be trusted, because otherwise we have to take them down to Madison or some other state because they are hard to find forensic anthropologists around here. I know that I have talked to you guys about the Tri-County Overdose Fatality Review Team that was established in 2020 from a grant from the Department of Health Services. This grant actually is going to be ending this year in August. I am unsure of how it's going to be taken care of because I know they want to continue the funding. They're just unsure of how they're going to be able to continue it. I believe that they're going to actually get it from federal funding now. But we partner with Marquette, Green Lake, and ourselves, and we put together over 30 partners with law enforcement, CPS, public health, myself, the other medical examiner, and we come together to review cases to see if there are any abilities to break the cycle for the next individual, to make recommendations to the state, to make recommendations to our current systems within our counties to change that, to help that another individual that comes along with the potential that they have substance use disorder. We hold these meetings. We do 4 reviews a year, and this is the 3rd grant cycle for this funding. In in January of this year, I was actually provided the opportunity with this funding to go to Washington DC, and these are my photos I took. It was a very dreary, obviously a very dreary night there. And we were able to go and see that 48 states were represented at this conference. They were all finding the similar patterns that we were finding with our case reviews. We were looking at harm reduction strategies, implementing new programs for people. And ultimately, we had found in our Tri-County area that we actually need to get to these people before they're even adults. We need to get to the kids. We need to be able to have that intervention before the kids are even slightly introduced to drugs by another student, another peer, an outside source. So we are taking our funding this year and trying to develop something that can help the youth in Waushara County, in Green Lake County, and in Marquette counties. Oh, and by the way, O'Hare Airport, I always fly out of Appleton, and when I get to O'Hare, my flights are constantly late, 2 flights. So just saying, it was fun, hour and a half late. So we are having our OFR community event. This is the second one. As you know, last year we held it in Green Lake County because we're moving it around to the counties. We held it in Marquezan. We had about 100 to 150 people attend. We had resources there. We had people with lived experience. We had a speaker. We had a legacy memorial of those who have lost their lives to substance use disorder. We're going to be doing this again, but this time we're pairing up with a local Waushara County family who has lost their son to a substance use overdose. And we're going to be holding it in Red Granite by Sunshine Coffee. I've gone to the village board already and explained everything to them. We have their blessing on taking care of this, and everything that we may need from them, they're going to help us with. We are working with the owner of Rock Coffee as well as the Pickle Factory for parking and additional room for patrons that are going to be coming. We're going to be having a 5K, and I believe it's going to be called Dash for the Stash because the individual who passed away had quite a remarkable mustache, and that's what his family is reminded of constantly when they see his photos. So our logo, when you see it, is going to be the mustache that he had. The 5K that we're doing, I've been reaching out to our local families who have lost their loved ones to substance use disorder to see if they want to actually participate by providing a picture of their loved one that we can place on the route of the 5K to remind people when they're walking what they're walking for. Like, we're walking for our family, but we want to help others. So they've been very receptive so far. I'll be reaching out to Green Lake County families as well as Marquette County families after I get that list from their medical examiner as well. We really want to bring awareness and break the stigma of substance use disorder. And what is also really neat about this and where we're holding it is the family is also related to the people who own Sunshine Coffee. And Sunshine Coffee owner has also lost her stepbrother to the same thing. So she is very big on embarking on this and wanting to help the community. I was astonished that when I went to the village board and presented what we want to do, there were actually tears. People and the family was actually there too, who had lost their loved one for support. And people were very touched by the fact that we're trying to really do something about this. We're trying to help these people. So I was shocked. I didn't realize that Red Granite really needed this. We will have music, food trucks. We're going to have a silent auction. We're going to have some local singers actually that are in Tennessee now making their way to the big, coming here, and they're donating their time. However, we have funds, so we're going to try and donate back to them. We have a signed, I think, is it Trace Adkins hat? We have all kinds of stuff. All the money that is being raised for this will go to the family, and they're going to actually take it and either open up another sober house or do some youth services counseling. They're going to try bringing something to Red Granite area so that these kids can have more opportunities, and adults as well, to be able to recover from this or not even get started in it. Because as I said, we're discovering that we need to get to these people at youth. I know that I went through the DARE program. I don't even know if the DARE program exists anymore. Does it, Wally? Does it? Okay. And I had a good time. My kids don't even go through DARE, and you know, so we really want to really embark on these kids and make it good for them. So we're looking at that. There will be no alcohol served at this. It is going to be something that starts at about 6 a.m. and ends about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I encourage you to come. It's going to be July 15th. It's actually on the decedent's birthday this year. And so it's going to be very touching for the family. After we had reviewed one case for the overdose, it was a veteran that had overdosed. And we made a recommendation to our OFR, our state OFR, that we really need to try to figure out how we can get veterans help. You know, they served on behalf of us. We need to pay it forward to them. I've been working with the VA now for approximately 6 months on trying to determine how is a veteran eligible for benefits, how do they seek assistance for recovery, how does their housing work? And we are just getting started on this, but our state advisory group actually chose our recommendation to take back to Wisconsin State and say, hey, we need to do something about this for our veterans. So we're working on that. We have a meeting in April that we're presenting to our state OFR. To let them know how far we've gotten as well. We're also trying to work with, we just had a meeting last week because there is a difficulty with veterans being able to access their emergent medications in terms of if they have to have a procedure done up in our area, they can't get their medications from the local pharmacies. They have to wait for the VA to send that to them. Sometimes that's just not good enough. That needs to happen immediately because, you know, is their pharmacy open on a Sunday, you know, or they're having to drive to Toma or Madison or Milwaukee. Well, when they've just had surgery, that's just not feasible. And when these veterans go to our local pharmacies, the pharmacists are complaining that they have to work with the VA. And I find that extremely unfair for these veterans. I actually had a personal experience. My husband is a veteran. He served during 9/11. And he had gallbladder surgery and I had to go to Walgreens to get him his medication. And they did give him some pain medication, some narcotics. And I could hear the pharmacist complaining that he had to work with the VA. He didn't want to deal with it. And this was the day, it was Thanksgiving Day. And he came back out and he was frustrated. And he said to me, he's like, I'm just going to give you his prescription medications. I'm not going to give you the Narcan. It's too expensive. And I said, I will pay out of pocket for whatever. I just want to get going. And he was very rude. And I shared the experience with the VA and they said this shouldn't be happening because obviously there are veterans who don't have medical examiners as wives to identify an overdose if there is necessary. So we need to be able to provide that to the veterans to make sure that they're comfortable as well. So we're working on that. I'll keep you updated along the way to see if it gets any further than the state, and hopefully we can bring some good things to Waushara County pharmacies as well. We also got funding to do next of kin interviewing. This isn't going to change much for me. We're actually just getting reimbursed from the grant to be able to do these interviews. But a lot of what they're asking for these interviews is stuff that I already do on scene with the families, questions that I already asked them. But this allows the other two counties to be able to do next of kin interviewings on the cases that we're reviewing to gather more information about these decedents to further put together a picture of what their life was like. We are currently working, the emergency management director and I are working on what we are calling the East Central Agreement. There is the red trailer parked out by the Sheriff's Department that is the public health trailer. They used to use it as a sheltering trailer many moons ago. It's a very good trailer and there's nothing wrong with it, but they're looking at something that is going to work for them. So I have been in contact with several coroners and medical examiners in the East Central region that also encompasses the East Central agreement for the emergency management directors as well. And so we're trying to get all of them on board so that we can have one area where we have a trailer where we can send a response team if there is a mass casualty or a disaster incident where medical examiners and coroners are needed from around the area. It's at no cost to them except for they need to basically feed us, make sure that we have sleeping arrangements, stuff like that. It's a mutual aid agreement. And we want to be able to train with them. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of DMORT. It's with the FEMA program where they would get deployed to hurricanes. After the hurricanes have gone through, they'd go and do recovery efforts for decedents. This is similar to that. This is on a smaller scale because DMORT hasn't been activated since before COVID because they aren't deploying anybody because they weren't because of COVID. So now we're working on this to try and bring this to Waushara County, and Waushara County medical examiners would be the host of it. So they'd have to go through us, and we can have a right to say, no, we can't help you, or yes, we can. And then we get, you know, like one of my deputies would cover for me, or they would go and they would take the trailer up. So I'm working with Al on that. It looks to be like we're moving right along, but it's just going to take quite a while to get everybody on board and get an agreement established that everybody understands. So the body cooler has arrived. It is massive. It's got to be about 7 feet tall. And it is in storage at the North Annex if anybody would like to see it. It can hold 4 bodies. I will be working on trying to find a Hoyer lift that may be used because obviously I am very vertically challenged. So trying to get somebody up on those trays for storage is going to be a little bit difficult for somebody like me. So I think that the Hoyer lift would be our best idea to be able to save my back as well as be able to take care of the decedents. But this is very exciting. This is going to be, it's awaiting its placement at the evidence garage. So if you have any questions about that, otherwise, thank you.
Very good report, Amanda. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Very interesting. Thank you. Okay, very good. We'll move on then with discussion, possible action items, action items. Number 1, update meal reimbursement policy in the procurement code. A motion to approve by Bonfiglio. Is there a second? Second by Cap. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Pat, is yours work?
Stuck too. Pat, is yours stuck?
Yes.
Was that yes for your vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it passes. Okay, very good. Vacation carryover policy. Is there a motion by Mr. Bonfiglio? Is there a second? Second by Mr. Urban. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote.
Yes, or I.
Okay, the motion passes. Very good. Okay, updated ARPA funding plan. Sarah. it's gonna-
Okay, you should all have a packet in front of you that was updated after the original board packet went out. We still had some things that needed to be tweaked. So in front of you, you have what was called Exhibit A when we first approved the ARPA plan. Everything that is highlighted in yellow has been determined as it stands right now that we no longer need to do. So I wanted to make you aware of those changes. And then everything in green is ARPA money that has been allocated towards the building project, which is going to be broken out on this spreadsheet that Kurt is going to go over. And then if you turn to the 4th page, you can see that originally when we did the plan, we had about 4.7 million allocated. It was just shy of like $600 that we received additionally that we didn't have allocated, but we got really close to the full amount. So when we remove the stuff that was highlighted in yellow, it amounts to about 744,000 that we no longer need. On that same page, we are looking to add 174,571 of new projects. I will point out that the first two items, one was for the Department of Aging for some kitchen equipment, and one was for jail washer dryers at the Sheriff's Department. This was stuff that we took out of our capital improvement plan when we approved the 2022 budget. So it was already approved by the board, but we never bought back the full plan knowing that we were going to have additions. So that's what those two are. And then Melissa had touched in her report that there is going to be a scanning project that we would like for departments to do. So we threw out a rough number. We're going to get more concrete information, but there was 100,000 there. And then approved in December, that went to the full board already, was $200,000 for some IT storage. So that brings with what we're removing, what's already been approved and what we're adding, it brings our total of allocations to about 4.3 million. I did also include on here the stuff that Kurt will go over for the changes that we need to make with the building project. So we do have about $370,000 that's never been allocated left remaining of ARPA money to be able to spend with however we see fit with these changes. And then we've also had about 271,000 of funds that we've already allocated towards projects. So that leaves us with about 642,000 that we will eventually need to think about where we want that money to go. And potentially it could be higher if some of the projects that we've already approved come in at a lesser cost.
And the deadline for that, Sarah, for spending that money is
2024.
2024.
Mhm.
Okay. Any particular time in
I
24?
believe it's the end of the year in
End of the year in
2024.
24. Okay. Did you want to run through those and then we can kind of look at it as a whole process here?
So I probably could have used smaller numbers for you.
Whoa.
I apologize. I thought they were going to be larger than that. So probably looks confusing. I tried to color code where we're at. So some of you, I don't know, were on the board when this process started, but Norm was here at the time and ARPA funds were coming out. And we were in the process of designing government center and other projects. And he had come to me with the small box on the bottom left-hand side that's green. That's the scope of the original ARPA scope. And the ARPA requirements were pretty stringent in regards to what could be utilized for the ARPA funds dealing with COVID and the things tied back to that. So the list that was originally identified was some HVAC upgrades at the jail for 700 grand, emergency generator at the kitchen for 85 grand, remove and replace some ceiling finishes at the jail for $100,000, installing some new variable frequency drives at the jail for 10 grand, an upgrade of our jail door controls for 250,000, and then touchless plumbing fixtures in a law enforcement center for 50 grand, which equated to $1,195,000. So as ARPA funding continued to progress, many people weren't spending them because there was, I guess, reservation about whether they would have to be paid back. The restrictions were lifted in prioritization of what needed to be done is what this spreadsheet came to be. You can see across the board here, there's many needs at the jail facility, and we broke them up into different alternates. And the reason that we bid them as alternates at the EOC is because the EOC is directly connected to the law enforcement center. To comply with ARPA requirements for construction projects, we had to have a competitive bid process. So rather than identify specs and bid process for each one of these items, we made them alternate on the EOC bid. So when we received our bids from contractors, we had a base bid for the EOC project, and then we had a list of alternates with numbers. So what you have on the left-hand side is the contractors that are listed that have provided a hard bid or a hard number for each one of these items. And that's what's reflective across the spreadsheet with the alternates that are listed there. So the items that are in green on the bottom left-hand corner are reflected in the green head, the top of the columns that were there. That's scope that is consistent with what was in the original ARPA scope, okay? The blue items that I've identified here as the ARPA funds that were already utilized, that's in that central box there. Those 3 items were the HVAC control update at the jail, the jail door control repairs, and that's actually an upgrade with accurate controls there. And then there were some detention door repairs from Stronghold. Those numbers equated to just under 300,000, 299 grand. And those dollars have already been allocated. Some of that work's already been completed and some of it is currently underway. So the 2 areas that are in yellow are replace the existing generator and then replace those ceiling finishes to be consistent with the prioritization of the first scope. Now, the generator number is significantly higher than what was originally identified. And there's a reason for that, is that the generator for the original scope was only adding a generator to the kitchen that's adjacent to the law enforcement center. As we identified the EOC project and the generator that is existing, it did not provide emergency power for the chiller for the law enforcement center. There were some issues with it being within the building, and obviously a diesel engine and the issues associated with that is that generator looked to be replaced. So we ran multiple different concepts in regards to what makes the most sense cost efficiency in regards to having to add additional services. If we had more than one, transfer switch cost, and at the end of the day, replacing the generator that's in the law enforcement center now with a larger generator outside of the EOC addition that would serve the kitchen, the evidence garage, the cooler that was just referenced in the law enforcement center was the most cost-effective approach. That's what was bid out. So this replacing an existing generator is adding one large generator on the campus that serves multiple buildings, and it does add the chiller to emergency power at the jail and law enforcement center. And then the replace the ceilings is the other one that would be a recommendation for approval. If all of those are approved, that's my lovely blue and yellow down there. If you approve all of them, it's $1,103,900. So it's under the 1,195,000. And there's other elements in here that could be added at this point. The biggest ones that I think need to be revisited or approached is what we do with HVAC in the on the campus. Alternate number 3 is specifically getting an exhaust system so that we could get some negative pressure, and we would need to do some HVAC balancing. If we combine both of them, we're over the ARPA funding. So those are discussions that'll have to happen at the committee level. But we wanted to give you an update to show you that this has all been bid out. We've got the factual data in front of us. These numbers here are valid from the contractors for 45 days from March 2nd. After that 45-day period, the contractors do not have to honor these numbers. So it is one of those things, if we want to take these numbers, we would have to act within that. Otherwise, we could talk to them about if this scope was something that's issued or revisited at a later date. So questions on my confusing tiny little spreadsheet?
What's that?
I guess I don't know how you guys have it set up in regards to, I guess the way I've looked at this is that if the 1,195,000 had been approved in your original funding process, we're staying underneath that. And I don't know if board action.
It's more just kind of giving direction that it could happen. So basically we're saying the first 2 and the last 3 are the ones that could go for first. That would give priority to those.
Yep.
If something would change, then it would have to come back. But basically that's what it's saying. Along with, so, I mean, that's what we could get done for the money
Correct.
that we've allocated
Correct.
for, from ARPA. So does anybody have any other questions, any concerns, or you want to pull anything out and talk about it even with Sarah or anybody? There's a lot of stuff here. It's a lot of different.
On Sarah's form that she had showed you, all the items that were in green are the same thing that I have here in green scope wise. So you'll see what was identified there for that original plan.
Trying to make the best use of the money that we have there. So did you have a question, Jesse?
That existing generator, how old is that one?
I believe it's vintage when the building was built. So
Basically, it's
I
undersized.
think it's 98, 1998. We're looking at the potential of repurposing that and selling it if there's values to that, how we get it out of there. Well,
Well, that's what I was wondering is
Yep.
if it could be sold or if
We're
that
work-
was already figured in
we're
or,
working on those details.
okay.
Yeah. That's a common question.
Okay, motion by Bonfiglio to approve. Is there a second to that motion? Second
I've
by-
got one more
Oh,
question.
okay, well, let's, did you want to pull something out? We've got let's get a second by Mr. Cap. Okay, now
Okay.
go ahead and you can get your,
You got a second in
Yep.
there? All
Mhm.
right, sorry.
that's okay.
Jumping the gun.
That's okay. We can
Um,
always amend things.
I had a question just related to the internet that was pulled out of here.
Mhm.
So is that kind of in response to the work being done with Bug Tussle, or what was the purpose
Yes.
for pulling that out of there?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we just, Sarah and I just spoke about this ARPA plan and the taking out or saying we don't need. We didn't want to complicate the discussion, but my comment to Sarah was, I don't want to remove that because we're like completely, because we're in phase 1 with Bug Tussle. And there's still a phase 2 and 3, and we're dealing with like requests, and where once we get done with them, like I think that it is going to be a discussion we should have. But for the sake of the time, because we were talking at 5:30, because we're just getting this, I would say we shouldn't be pulling it out completely. But that's a very good question, because that is a very important piece to the puzzle in our community.
But that'd be a question that would have to be brought up because I don't know how far $700,000 would go towards a phase 2. I have no idea on those kind of costs. So,
There is that other like really large grant that's in the process for broadband for Wisconsin that's happening right now that we as a county have participated in with New North to be able to work through that. The BEAD grant it's called, and it's for broadband infrastructure and that kind of stuff. So that is also monies that would come back in reference to that.
So
to go with it too.
So the money left is how much? It's under 700,000, but we won't allocate any more money without your permission. So like that, I think it should come back as a line item in a discussion, further discussion with Bug Tussle, which they're still in phase 1, but I understand your question. Cause
Okay.
Mhm.
And I said I only had one question, but another one is, can ARPA funds be used towards gravel?
I
For,
suppose
like,
it
the highway
depends on-
department?
Yeah, there's some, I know some some townships, I think, are using it for roads, aren't they? Yeah, so I'm sure that could be.
There was ruling on if it's under a certain amount of money, which is us, they don't have to have, there's not so many strings attached to it. Like there were in the beginning, but I think it can be used for, one-time purposes, buildings, things like that.
Okay. So you couldn't just like stock up a gravel pile, but if it had a designated purpose?
It's a good
Yeah,
question.
I don't know.
Okay.
That would be a.
Do you want us to find out?
Yeah,
If it could be used for what, say again?
Like a
for-
gravel pile.
Like a gravel pile?
yeah, for
road
stockpiling
work or
gravel
whatever.
for
Mhm.
different projects around the county. I was just notified that that's an expense that's driving some decisions in the Parks Department. And so if we're able to use ARPA funds for eliminating some of those expenses, that'd be good to know.
Our parks?
What,
Our
yeah,
Parks Department?
yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll look into it.
Is there another question?
Kurt, on all these alternates that are white, those are not included in any of this.
Correct.
So all those bids will be no good then?
Correct.
But it kind of gives you an idea what things need to be done at the jail. Okay. Is there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, then we'll proceed to vote. Okay, motion passes. All right, very good. Consideration, possible action on the following resolutions and ordinance. The resolution number 0303-23 in support of Washera Shines. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Eckstein. Is there any any discussion? All right. Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Okay, the resolution passes. Resolution number 0403-23, authorizing Washera County to enter into the settlement agreements with Teva Pharmaceutical Industries Limited, Allergan Finance LLC, Walgreen Company, Walmart Inc., CVS Health Corporation, and CVS Pharmacy Inc. Agreed to the terms of the addendum to the MOU allocating settlement proceeds and authorize entry into the MOU with the Attorney General. Basically, it's what we did last month, but this is the agreement. So, okay, motion by Mr. Kirschner, second by Mr. Wadle. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll proceed to vote then. Okay, the resolution passes. Ordinance number 674, the ordinance amending Chapter 26, Article 1, Section 26-2 of the Washera County Code. Okay.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Wadle. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Cap. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, proceed to vote.
No, I'm taking a second, man. Don't run too many of them anyway.
Was it a positive vote? Yes, okay. Okay, the ordinance passes. Very good, thank you. Next is the proclamations, and we'll do this with voice votes. First one is recognizing April 2023 as National County Government Month, Counties Rise. Motion by Mr. Bonfiglio, second by Mr. Eckstein. Is there any discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it passes. Declaring April 9th through the 15th, 2023 as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Bonfiglio. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Urban. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it passes. Designating April 17th through the 21st, 2023 as Tornado and Severe Weather Awareness Week. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Mr. Bonfiglio, second by Mr. Piaski. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Proclaiming April 3rd through the 9th, 2023 as National Public Health Week. Okay. Motion by Mr. Eckstein. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Urban. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And then finally, designated April 17th through the 21st, 2023 as Work Zone Awareness Week. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Bonfiglio, second by Mr. Eckstein. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, very good. I just want to announce that we are going to have a Buildings and Grounds meeting next week, Thursday, March 30th at 12:30. So just so you know, we're going to be getting the last bids in, and so we can discuss how we're going to proceed there. All right, is there any other board suggestions for future agenda items? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Eckstein, is there a second? Second by Mr. Wadle. All right, very good. We're adjourned. Thank you. Work for you in May will work best the 1st or the 13th or 15th for exec, because these guys are all going to be gone that middle week that when we normally have exec.